Before the 18th of October, 4 things will happen and everything will change. But not on the outside first. It will begin within you. Because the greatest transformation is not the shifting of seasons, but the shifting of your soul. Listen carefully. This is not a word for everyone. It is for T-Bar-He-One who has reached the end of striving, the one who is ready to let go. You have been holding too tightly to things that were never meant to define you. People, positions, promises, you tried to hold them together with your willpower, but your spirit is tired. You are exhausted because you have confused attachment with faith. Faith does not cling. Faith releases. Faith rests in the knowledge that if it is of God, it will stand. The Lord says, before this date arrives, I will teach you how to be free. You will learn the power of holy detachment, to care deeply, yet not be consumed, to love fully, yet not lose yourself, to work diligently, yet not worship results. For I am raising a people who will not be moved by the shaking of the world, but will stand in stillness, knowing I am God. Some of you have been praying for change, but heaven cannot fill a hand that refuses to let go. You are asking for the new while gripping the old. Detachment is not loss, it is positioning. It is stepping aside so that divine timing can move freely. It is saying, God, not my emotions, not my fears, not my understanding, but your will be done. Do you know why storms come? They come to expose your anchor. Anyone can believe when the waters are calm, but when waves rise, your attachment is tested. You will see what you trust, your comfort or your calling. When everything around you begins to shift before October's end, do not panic. Remember, detachment is your weapon, peace is your position. There will be moments when God will take from you what you thought you needed, not to punish you, but to purify your focus. You will cry, but you will grow. You will feel loss, but you will gain spiritual strength. Because in detachment you discover what cannot be taken from you, your divine identity. You will learn that nothing external can threaten what heaven has already sealed within. When you stop needing to be understood, you become unshakable. When you stop needing to be validated, you become unstoppable. And when you stop needing to control, you become a vessel through which God rolls all things. This is emotional mastery, not by human will, but by spiritual awakening. Before the 18th of October, some doors will close, but do not mourn them. You asked for destiny, and destiny requires pruning. Some relationships will fade, not because of failure, but because of fulfillment. Their season is complete. Some opportunities will vanish, but they were distractions dressed as blessings. And when it happens, you will not chase, you will choose peace. God is calling you to detach not from life, but from limitation. To be in the world, but not owned by it. To walk among chaos, while to carry calm. To love deeply, but never lose your center. This is maturity, the moment you no longer fight for what God has already settled. So when you see the shifting, lift your head. The detachment is divine. You are being prepared for overflow that only freedom can hold. You are being shaped for promotion that only peace can sustain. Heaven is teaching you not to react, but to reign, to walk in quiet confidence that says, I have already won. And when October as sun sets, you will look back and realize the change was never in the calendar, it was in you. The world did not change first, your spirit did. Because you finally learned that detachment is not distance, it is dominion. You will not chase, you will not cling. You will stand anchored in divine assurance that what is meant for you cannot be lost, delayed, or denied. So prepare your heart. Let go of what pulls you down. Detach from fear. Detach from control. Detach from the illusion that peace comes from people or things. For before this appointed time arrives, heaven will teach you the highest form of faith, the art of letting go and trusting that everything is already working for your good. Because when you are true and free within, nothing outside can shake you again. Spiritual detachment is not indifference. It is dominion. When a person reaches the stage of divine detachment, they do not stop caring. They simply stop being controlled by what they care about. That is the difference between a soul that lives in peace and a soul that lives in bondage. Many people confuse emotional numbness with spiritual maturity, but they are not the same. Numbness is a defense mechanism. Detachment is divine strength. It is the quiet confidence that says, no matter what happens around me, I will not lose myself in it. When you begin to walk in this truth, you realize that true power does not come from holding on, but from knowing when to release. In life, there are seasons when you must love without possession, give without expectation, and serve without the need for recognition. That is what it means to walk in divine detachment. You do not love less, you love more purely. You do not stop giving, you give more freely. You are no longer attached to the outcome, for your faith is not in the result, but in the one who governs results. This kind of spiritual freedom transforms your heart. You no longer say, I will be happy when, because your joy is not dependent on when, it is rooted in who. People often say, if I let go, I'll lose everything. But in truth, the opposite is real. If you don't let go, you lose yourself. Detachment is not the end of desire, it is the purification of desire. You still want what is good, but you no longer panic if it delays. You still hope for great things, but you are not destroyed if they change. You understand that control is an illusion that drains your peace. The one who clings the tightest suffers the most, because attachment is often fear disguised as love. When you are truly detached, you can love others without needing them to complete you. You can serve God without demanding a reward. You can face loss and still remain whole. That is the essence of dominion, to be ruled by peace instead of emotion. When Jesus was asleep in the storm, he wasn't care, tentabar less he was detached. The waves did move him because his soul was anchored. Detachment gives you that same authority, the ability to remain calm while everything else trembles. There comes a moment when life will test your attachments. You may lose people you love, positions you held, or plans you made, and the question will rise, who am I without them? And in that holy silence, you will hear the voice of God say, you are mine, you are still whole. That revelation is liberation. It frees you from defining yourself through things that can fade. You begin to see that peace was never to come from possession, but from presence, the presence of the one who never leaves. The more detached you become from external outcomes, the clearer you hear divine instruction. Worry and control or noise detachment is silence, and in silence revelation flows. Some of the greatest break the roughs come not when you fight harder, but when you stop fighting altogether. Detachment is the courage to say, I will rest and trust that what is meant for me will come, and what is not meant will go. That trust turns chaos into clarity and pain into preparation. There is a mystery in divine attachment. When you stop chasing what you want, it starts coming toward you, because the universe, under God's law, responds to rest more than resistance. When you are calm, you attract peace. When you are desperate, you repel destiny. Detachment aligns you with divine rhythm. You no longer run after our blessings, you walk in them. You no longer beg for opportunities, you become one. Those who master detachment are not emotionless, they are emotionally disciplined. They feel deeply, but are not ruled by feelings. They love deeply, but do not lose their identity. They serve passionately, but do not seek applause. That is the highest state of spiritual maturity, to be in the world fully engaged, yet unmoved by its fluctuations. You stop being reactive and start being creative. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start declaring, this is happening for me. When you detach, the need to control people or circumstances, you begin to live in flow with divine purpose. You trust that what leaves was never yours, and what remains is meant to grow with you. You stop fearing endings because you know that every ending is an unseen beginning. This is dominion, the ability to move through transitions without losing your center. So let your soul breathe. Release the need to hold everything together. Detach not because you dawn to care, but because you finally understand that love without control is the purest form of love. Peace without possession is the truest peace, and without attachment is the strongest faith, detachment. Is not coldness, it is clarity, the clarity that reminds you that nothing eternal can be lost. What belongs to you will always find you when you no longer need to chase it. That is divine dominion. That is freedom. Emotional freedom is the evidence of true spiritual authority. When a person no longer allows emotions to dictate their peace, they have stepped into the realm of divine rulership. Emotions are like waves, they rise and fall, but the ocean beneath remains still. When your soul learns to live beneath the waves, you begin to G and bar over in life instead of reacting to it. That is the secret of spiritual power, to rule from within, not to be ruled from without. Most people live like leaves blown by the wind of circumstance, but those who walk in emotional mastery stand like mountains. They feel the wind, but they are not moved by it. This freedom is not the denial of emotion, it is the sanctification of emotion. God never asked you to stop feeling. He asked you to stop bowing to your feelings. There is a difference between experiencing an emotion and being enslaved by it. Anger, fear, sadness, and even joy are messengers, not masters. They come to inform you, not to control you. The mature spirit listens to emotion but answers only to truth. That is why spiritual authority begins where emotional dependence ends. Many people think authority comes from strength, from loudness, from control, but authority is quiet, rooted in peace. When you can look at a storm and say, "Be still," it is because you have already commanded the storm within you to be still. The outside world mirrors your inner state. If you are in chaos inside, chaos will find you outside. But when you cultivate peace inside, peace begins to shape the world around you. Emotional freedom is the language of dominion. It says, "I am not at the mercy of how I feel. I am guided by what I know." There will come times when disappointment strikes like lightning. Someone will betray you, a plan will fail, or life will take a turn that seems unfair. In those moments, the untrained heart reacts, the mature heart reflects. When you are emotionally free, you pause before you respond. You allow heaven to interpret the pain before your words do. You realize that not every wound is an injury. Some wounds are invitations to grow. The pain you feel is not punishment, it is preparation. The quicker you learn to interpret pain through divine wisdom, the less you suffer from it. Emotional freedom does not mean you stop caring, it means you stop bleeding over what cannot be changed. You learn to rise above your triggers and sit in the seat of peace. It is the RNBRD that revelation comes. You cannot hear divine instruction when you are drowning in emotional noise. The voice of God is never loud, it is steady, calm, and sure. When your emotions are louder than your spirit, you lose sight of purpose. But when your spirit rules, your emotions serve instead of sabi tbr or otage. Every person God uses greatly must pass through the fire. Emotional discipline. You cannot lead where you are easily offended. You cannot heal others if your heart breaks at every rejection. You cannot speak life if bitterness still shapes your words. God will often allow situations to test your emotions, not to shame you, but to strengthen you. Each test asks, can you still be peaceful here? Can you still trust me when nothing feels right? That is how authority is born, through surrender, not struggle. The measure of your authority is not how many people you command, but how well you command yourself. If you can govern your thoughts, master your emotions, and respond with peace when provoked, you are already ruling in the spiritual realm. Heaven recognizes not the loud, but the aligned. The one who has mastered their inner world can shift atmospheres without speaking. Peace be in Bran comes their weapon, calm becomes their crown. There is a kind of quiet strength that unsettles darkness. When you walk into a room filled with tension and refuse to match its energy, you disarm it. That is emotional freedom. It is the power to choose peace when provoked, to respond with wisdom instead of reaction. It is the understanding that emotions are servants to purpose, not obstacles to it. You begin to see anger as fuel for passion, sadness as a doorway to empathy, fear as a call to faith. Every emotion becomes an opportunity to rise higher. To be emotionally free is to be spiritually above the art and wake. It is to stand firm in your identity when everything else demands your reaction. It is to say, my peace is not for sale, my joy is not negotiable, my faith is not conditional. When you reach that place, life loses its power to shake you. You still feel, but you do not fall. You still care, but you do not crumble. You still face storms, but you do not sink. Emotional freedom is not found in resisting emotion, but in surrendering it to divine wisdom. When you hand your heart to God, He teaches it how to feel without breaking, how to love without losing, how to care without clinging. You become untouchable not because nothing can reach you, but because nothing can rule you. That is authority. That is peace. That is the mark of a spirit that has truly learned how to reign. Letting go invites divine flow. The moment you release your grip on outcomes, you create space for heaven to move. Control is the language of fear, but surrender is the language of faith. So long as you try to manage every detail of your life, you stand in the way of miracles. The flow of God cannot move through a clenched fist. It moves through open hands. Many people spend their lives striving, forcing, and fighting, yet remain empty because they are not aligned. They are attached. They are attached to timing, to methods, to outcomes. But the Spirit of God works through surrender, not strain. The power of letting go is the bridge between human limitation and divine intervention. The greatest battles in life are not fought on the outside, but within the war between two. Need to control and the call to trust. Faith begins when control ends. As long as you insist on understanding everything, you shut the door on what God is trying to do beyond your understanding. You cannot walk in divine flow while C and Bohr said clinging to human logic. God-S movements often appear unpredictable, but they are always purposeful. The moment you release the need to predict how He will move, you begin to witness the beauty of His ways. There is a rhythm to divine flow, a spiritual current that carries those who trust. When you and Borsach strive by control, you are like a swimmer fighting against the tide, exhausted but unmoving. But when you surrender, you float, you are carried. You discover that peace is not found in forcing life to obey you, but in aligning with the will that already knows where you belong. Surrender is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is the highest expression of confidence, for it says, I trust God more than I trust my fear. Letting go does not mean giving up, it means giving over. It is not quitting, it is yielding. You stop wrestling with what you cannot fix, and instead open your heart to what God can read to Borsach Eam. When you surrender, you become light enough for heaven to lift. You begin to see that what you were holding on to so tightly was often the very thing blocking your blessing. When you let go of the need to control people, you make room for authentic connection. When you let go of how things should unfold, you make room for divine timing. Every miracle in Scripture began when someone stopped trying to fix things their own way and started trusting in the unseen hand of God. Consider this truth. What you release returns transformed. Whatever you lay upon the altar comes back multiplied or repliced with something better. But you must first be willing to place it there. Many miss their blessing because they pray with their mouths but cling with their hearts. They ask God to move, but secretly refuse to let go of what must be removed. Surrender is not a one-time act, it is a daily decision. Every morning you wake up and choose trust over control, faith over fear, flow over force. When you finally let go, peace becomes your natural state. You stop chasing what you were never meant to hold and start receiving what was meant for you all along. Letting go changes your vibration, your mind appearance set, your spiritual atmosphere. Suddenly, what once drained you no longer attracts you. You stop running after people who left, stop worrying about doors that closed, and start recognizing that what left your life was never meant to stay in your future. You stop pleading for things that would have limited your growth. In the flow of surrender, you realize that God's no is often a higher form of love than His yes. Those who walk in divine flow do not rush. They move with calm assurance. They understand that waiting is not wasting, that delays are divine arrangements. When something doesn't go as planned, they don't panic, they pause. They ask, what is heave? And doing here, and in that question, revelation comes. Letting go is how you learn to read the language of divine timing. It teaches you to stop seeing obstacles as punishments and start seeing them as protection. To live in flow RW is to live free. You no longer depend on circumstances to feel secure. You no longer measure success by how much you control. You begin to measure it by how much peace you carry. This peace becomes your compass. You move when peace moves. You stop when peace stops. And in that rhythm, doors open without effort, relationships align without striving, and provision appears without anxiety. That is the miracle of divine flow. It replaces pressure with purpose and stress with surrender. When you let go, you are not losing control, you are gaining partnership with the Creator. You stop being the author of confusion and become the co-author of destiny. You realize that God does not need your management, He needs your permission. He cannot fill hands that are full of fear. So release the timeline, the expectations, the outcomes. Trust that what is meant for you is already written, and no human interference can erase it. Letting go is not a moment of weakness, it is the moment of awakening. It is when you finally understand that faith is not about forcing results, it is about flowing with divine intention. When you let go, life becomes lighter, miracles become natural, and peace becomes permanent. For the one who surrenders is the one who truly wins. Confidence is born in stillness. The person who has discovered the art of being still has found the foundation of divine strength. It is in the quiet spaces of the heart that true identity is revealed, and it is from that identity that UNNBR's unshakable confidence arises. Most people look for confidence in the noise of approval, in the echo of applause, in the shifting sands of validation, but all of these are fragile. The confidence that lasts is not built on what people say, but on what God has already spoken. When your heart is anchored in divine assurance, you no longer chase recognition, you radiate purpose. Stillness is not the absence of movement, it is the presence of alignment. It is that sacred inner silence where your spirit becomes one with divine rhythm. You stop striving to prove yourself because you know that you were allotted or already chosen. You no longer measure your worth by results because your worth is rooted in relationship, not in performance. When you are still, you begin to hear the whispers of eternity reminding you that you are enough, that you are sent, that you are covered. Confidence does not come from effort. It comes from awareness. The awareness that you were created with intention and designed with authority. There is a reason why the voice of God is often described as a whisper. It is not because He is far away, but because He is close, and whispers are only heard by those who are still. In stillness and Bardes, you stop reacting to the noise of life and start responding to the call of destiny. You learn that confidence is not loud or boastful, it is calm, grounded, and clear. The truly confident do not compete, they complete. They do not seek to be above others, they seek to be aligned with heaven. When Y-Fit% our heart learns stillness, your steps become steady. You no longer rush ahead of divine timing or lag behind in fear. You begin to move with quiet authority, knowing that what is meant for you cannot be taken, and what passes you by was never yours to keep. Confidence is born when you finally stop trying to force outcomes and start trusting divine order. It is the peace of knowing that the same God who began your story will also finish it. Many people mistake busyness for progress. They run from one pursuit to another, driven by fear of being forgotten. But true progress is often made in SILE and DDRNCE. Growth happens in stillness, not in noise. A seed does not shout while it grows beneath the soil, it simply rests in the dark, trusting the process. In the same way, confidence grows quietly in those who are willing to wait in faith. The still heart is not passive, it is powerful. It listens, or it moves, prays before it speaks, and trusts before it sees. Stillness teaches you to separate movement from momentum. Not all movement is progress, and not all noise means life. Some people move frantically, yet go nowhere. But when you are still within, even small steps carry divine weight. Confident soul does not need to announce its direction, it simply walks with grace, because heaven backs every step. There is a quiet dignity that follows those who know they are sent. They do not compete with others because they know destiny has no duplicates. What is theirs will find them. Confidence built on stillness cannot be shaken by criticism, nor inflated by praise. You no longer seek the approval of people because you live from the approval of God. This confidence is not arrogance, it is alignment. It is the knowing that you are not walking alone. The same Spirit that created the Stillness walks within you. You do not need to prove yourself to anyone when the Creator Himself has already called you His own. In the stillness of faith, fear loses its voice. Anxiety dissolves because you realize you are not the one holding your life together, God is. The one who trusts does not need to panic because their security is not built on circumstance. Even when storms come, they remain calm, for they have learned the truth that peace is not found in control, but in surrender. Stillness is your sanctuary. It is where God restores your confidence after the world tries to drain it. There we and Ardalel come seasons where everything slows down, doors seem closed, and silence fills the air. Do not mistake that silence for abandonment. It is preparation. The quiet season is where God strengthens your roots before revealing your fruit. He builds your confidence in the secret place so that when the stage comes, your peace will not be shaken by pressure. Stillness is the womb of greatness. Everything eternal begins there. The truly confident soul walks with serenity, not with noise. They do not chase attention, they attract alignment. They are not desperate to prove their worth, they rest in Debart in assurance. Their calmness becomes their testimony, their peace becomes their power, and their faith becomes their fragrance. When you walk in that kind of confidence, heaven's timing no longer intimidates you. You know that delay is not denial. You no longer fear the unknown. You realize you were built for it. Confidence born in stillness is the crown of those who have surrendered the need to impress and embraced the call to express. You no longer live for applause, you live from approval. You no longer live in reaction, you live in revelation. That is the secret of true strength. Not noise, not pride, not striving, but stillness. For in stillness, you remember who you are, and in remembering who you are, you walk in the authority of the one who sent you. Everything changes when the soul awakens. Before the world shifts around you, God first transforms the world within you. Detachment aches you to love without losing yourself. Emotional freedom teaches you to feel without being ruled. Surrender teaches you to let go and flow with divine timing. Stillness teaches you to trust who you are in God without fear or striving. Together, these form the foundation of true spiritual dominio, the kind of peace that cannot be shaken, the kind of strength that does not need to prove itself, and the kind of faith that walks in quiet authority. You were never created to live as a prisoner of emotion, control, or circumstance. You were designed to reign from within, to stand tall in the calm of divine assurance. Every storm, every delay, every disappointment has been God's gentle way of teaching you this truth. You are not what happens to you. You are what you choose to become through it. The moment you stop clinging to what fades, you make space for what is eternal. Before the appointed time arrives, heaven is calling you into a deeper alignment. Release your grip on outcomes. Silence the noise of fear. Let go of what no longer carries purpose. Detach, not in bitterness, but in peace. Surrender, not in weakness, but in wisdom. Stand still, not in passivity, but in divine confidence, because when you master the inner world, the outer world begins to obey. This is the transformation that awaits you not in some distant future, but now in this sacred moment. The miracle you are praying for begins in your surrender. The breakthrough you seek begins in your stillness. The Victor Why you long for begins the moment you release control and trust the flow of divine purpose. You will see that everything that once caused you pain was preparing you for power. Every loss was making space for life. Every silence was teaching you how to hear heaven. When you let go of fear, peace takes its rightful place. When you let go of control, favor begins to flow. When you let go of striving, divine timing takes over. You become light, free, and unshakable. And from that place, nothing and no one can move you again. For the one who has mastered detachment, emotional freedom, surrender, and stillness walks no longer as a seeker, but as one who is already found. So step into the new. The old season has served its purpose. Breathe deeply and know you are entering a divine flow where nothing is wasted and everything works for your good. Heaven has already gone ahead of you. You need only release, rest, and rise. Because when you finally stop fighting to control what was never yours, you become who you were always meant to be, whole, free, fearless, and filled with divine peace.